Welcome to Playing Now, the podcast with your host, Joe Conte, where we explore the best content in the universe. Today's show is going to be epic, so stay tuned and let's have some play. All right, so welcome everybody. Once again, this is Joe from the Look Who platform. We are here with Bernhard Pucher, which is the director of Ravers, which is an awesome and funny horror film that is on the platform Look Who right now on our Frightener channel. Bernhard, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your help and your time.
So anyway, thank you very much for having me. I'm glad I'm here.
Yes, thank you for being here. Let's talk about Ravers a little bit. First of all, like I said, I watched the film a couple of times and it was great. Olivia was great. Georgia was great. She was amazing. Georgia Hurst is, like I said, my wife watches the show Vikings, so right. She noticed who she was. I watched it with my wife first because she loves horror movies as well. So she noticed her from Vikings because she was like obsessed with that show for a while. And of course, it's a really well done show, like crazy show. And we both recognize Natasha because, we like the old school films, Species and Species 2, obviously classic. For me, they're classic 90s early sci-fi.
They are classic
totally. Movies, dude. They were really good. So Ravers was really cool because, it had a really well balanced humor and gore right from the start. As soon as the opening scene happens, you know what I mean? I'm not going to give everything away because I want people to watch the movie, but there's a whole opening scene that goes down. This film is basically about a drink that gets produced that's got too much of something in it, and when people drink it, they kind of go nuts, and they get really aggravated. But as the movie goes on, you kind of learn that they can still understand, and the one drug dealer guy ends up kind of controlling them and telling them what to do, and they start listening to him. Of course, everyone meets their demise in some way, shape, or form. Almost everyone. But the opening scene of the film was like amazing because the packaged head comes out of the thing, and then the title comes on, and you're just like, all right, I'm gonna watch this because that was awesome, and that I can't remember his name, the big guy, the actor,
Olivier.
He's in stuff. He's known for a bunch of stuff. That guy.
My movie was his first movie. He was basically, he was obviously a bodybuilder and things like that. Yeah. He basically, our stunt guy, basically cast him because we were just looking for a behemoth of a creature, right? He was our Pete Pedrero, our stunt guy, basically said, there's this other guy. He doesn't have any movie experience, but he's huge. He's the tallest bodybuilder in the world. Do you want to talk to him? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
And Olivia is just the nicest guy in the world, and he's so Dutch too, like really calm and chill, and really, really good guy. And he's most recently he's in the new Indiana Jones movie, so he's a big henchman working for the bad guy.
No way, that's huge. Wow.
Exactly.
Well, you started him off. Look at that, man.
The interesting thing is he auditioned actually before he did my movie. He auditioned for to play Chewbacca because he's the right height. But
that makes sense. Too big.
But he's too big. He couldn't fit into the costume, so he could use him.
Chewbacca's big, but he's not like
he's not muscular.
He doesn't have that much girth to him. This guy was great. He did amazing in the beginning of the film too. Like everything was great, and then when he picks the guy up and slams him down, his head comes lopping off. I was just like, oh my god! And then the funny part is it's packaged, because it's part of the machine, it's part of the belts, and it comes out all packaged with the sticker on it. And it's like, and then later on they're like, they never found the head, like that kind of stuff. We'll see. There's all kinds of those elements of humor throughout the movie that I really, really like. Like I said, dude, I watched everything, everything you can imagine. I have like a VHS collection, that's the dude I am, and I really like that about the film, that balance of humor, because it's not overdone. Everything's kind of like really well balanced. And I liked also, this is another thing I liked. I will ask you questions, believe me. I'm not.
Yeah, please, no worries.
But look, as it progresses, like they're not really zombies, but what they turn into like the more that they take, the crazier and then at the end their eyeballs are just bulging out. You know what I mean? And then one of the later scenes with the dude with the head, the sound effects that you put in that, it was like you threw in like these 80s like cartoony sound effects in the mix with real ones, and it was so funny, dude. And I just like when movies like this, the whole movie has a little hint of a whimsical feel to it. But Georgia really carried the movie extremely well, and it was relatable. You got attached to her character because you did something with the character where she was like a germaphobe from the beginning, you know, and so as time goes on, you're like, oh, she's like a hardcore germaphobe. And I'm not going to give too much away, but later on in the movie, she basically has to face all her biggest fears as a germaphobe, which I thought was great. So the thing about the film was like, you know, there's movies that happen like this that you just don't get attached to the characters that much. You got such great actors in this film that you got it. Even the dude, the guy Ozzy, the friend,
yeah,
he was amazing. Like all the actors that you got in the film really carried it so well throughout the mayhem and what was going on. And what's the guy's name? Kamal Bolden. I put it this way: my cast is brilliant, right? So I absolutely love each and one of the actors that we got, and it's a bit of an ensemble cast, this movie, right? We have a lot of characters, and while we have Georgia playing Becky, our main character, there are a lot of characters in it, and I'm not sure I do them all enough justice. There are a couple of people that kind of had to get pushed to the side, all the actors I managed to get, but considering the ridiculous premise that we basically have, I didn't deserve to get the good actors that I have. Like it's like I read the script and just get back to me, you know.
It's seriously like they should have just all looked at this and going, what the fuck, you know, like why am I in this movie? But the one thing that Luke did extremely well is he cares a lot about his characters, and what we want to do is that whatever the characters went through was real and genuine, and one guy wants to DJ desperately, one guy, you know, wants to throw a good party, the other guy just really wants to get high, you know, and you know,
those are the side characters. Those are the side characters. But when you watch the film, you get enough, like the guy, you know, the DJ guy, he gets to do it, you know, because he turns into a founding DJ, and that's all he cares. So the cool thing too is like what they turn into, half zombie, half person, whatever you want to call it, they still want things, you know. Most of them want more drugs. Obviously, there's a lot of drugs. For those of you who haven't seen it, there's a lot of drugs in this movie. There's a lot of drugs.
Absolutely.
Kamal plays, I want to say Vinny. I can't remember the name of the character, but Vince, yeah. So Kamal plays the drug dealer, who actually kind of turns out to be quite a savvy businessman, if you think about it, being able to work them and can, you know, be able to give them one, and he figures it out when he tells the one guy to step back, and he does. He says, "Wait a second," you know. But he did such a good. And also, here's another thing, okay? And I'm not just raving because I'm talking to you. It's a great movie.
You should be raving with this movie, right? It's called Ravers.
It's called Ravers, yeah. And when I was younger, I went to raves. The whole scene, the whole aesthetic of the whole rave aesthetic was totally nailed, obviously, really well. And you know, like the girl's looking around, everyone's popping pills and doing drugs, and she's like, is this, you know, what happens if the cops come, you know, like, and like you that's, you know, when you're a kid and you go to those things, you actually see those things. So the aesthetic was really well done, and the atmosphere was well done. But you know, with Kamal, there's certain, I'm a big fan of, in horror films, I'm a big fan of death scenes. Okay.
Oh no, you can't say anything else.
I'm not I'm not giving it away. I'm just saying Kamal. And there's a couple other ones too. Jen, the cop, you know, she does. I'm not going to say it, but trust me, I'm not going to give too much away because you got to see the movie. But there's certain things like when, you know, you always kind of like, when you're a horror movie guy, you might, oh, if that ever happened to me, I would do that. And then she does it. And so you watch this movie and you're like, finally, someone's like doing that thing that you kind of have thought about as a weird guy. You thought about like, oh, this is what I would do in that situation. And she does it. You know, and you're just kind of like, that's amazing. But Kamal's is my favorite just because it's got the attitude, you know. So the death scenes all have such great, you know, you know, what's funny is the death scenes almost show the most character of the characters. And you think about it, right? You know? So, but yeah, so
no, I mean, when it comes to that, I mean, as Luke Foster, the writer, I've been working with him for years, and this whole idea came about because he had his original idea was even sillier than the one we had.
Really?
Yeah, no, it was called Poppers, and the idea is that people would basically take this sort of ecstasy tablet that would basically just make people's heads explode, you know? And I thought it was really funny, but I told him, like, I don't think there's a movie with this. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a funny joke, but I'm not sure that's a film. You know?
Yeah, right.
I was a DJ for years, right? Like that's why the guy plays turntables, because that was the stuff I played. Yeah, I mean, so it was really had a nice little comment in there about a USB DJ taking over from a vinyl.
Yeah, he puts in the USB. Yeah,
exactly, because that's what happened. You know, I mean, basically, like, try to find a vinyl DJ now is much rarer. You know, but the thing is that it's completely true.
I haven't thought about that. Yeah,
but I was a DJ for many years. I ran a record label, produced tracks, did all that stuff, you know, and so I have a very, very close connection to the scene. I love it deeply, and so I brought most of those things into this story. That was sort of my contribution to it, because even though Luke loves horror movies, he's not a big techno guy, you know. So he's much more rock and heavy metal. And of course, after we did my first film, which was a romantic comedy about a DJ has to serve 6 months house arrest in his ex-girlfriend's place, which had a bunch of techno in it, and then we did this one, which also has a bunch of techno in it. It's like, Bernhard, the next movie we make will not have fucking techno in it.
He's over it.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done now. No more techno, you know.
Well, the cool thing too is Ravers. It's got a lot of obviously techno in it, but there's also, like, you know, the characters, some of the you know, the extras or the characters in it, they're all kind of like heavy metaled out. Like the dude that's kind of throwing the party looks kind of like a metalhead to me. He's got the black vest, and
he looks quite a bit like I used to look. So, you know, he's like. I don't like doing movie cameos. That's not me, you know. Yeah. But like, you know, I'm gonna get one person who kind of looks like me, and then I can say I'm still sort of my semi cameo.
So you're a little bit more in the story than you are saying.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, but that's the thing. It's like when we developed this idea together, the whole point was to try and get as authentic of an experience for both the characters and the scene and everything as possible in there, while we're still doing something silly. I think comedy is the funniest when you're sincere. You know, if you're only tongue in cheek, that's cool. You know, but even films that are more tongue in cheek, that are more self aware, like Shaun of the Dead, for example, and far be it from me that I want to compare Ravers to Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is genius, you know.
It's a brilliant movie. Yeah, it is.
Exactly. But the point is, Shaun of the Dead is really aware of what it is, you know.
Oh yeah.
And that, but even there, the comedy is funny because the characters are real and they care, and that was really important for us here. That, you know, even though we set up like these little quirks that all the characters have, they have to follow through. Like, these things can't just be set up and then nobody cares anymore after that.
Right.
Like we want to make sure that everything is motivated, everything that happens to the characters is genuine and has a proper payoff. Setup payoff was
and it does.
Exactly. Now Luke wrote all that into the script, and I did my best in the movie. So
he did an amazing job. Even with the dialogue, he did an amazing job. The characters, he did a great job. I mean, and like I said earlier, that's what the whole thing is. You do, like, you know, and pretty quickly too, you get a great feel for the characters, and then over time you kind of get attached to them, and when things happen, you're like, whoa, you know. So you know, that happens when people get, you know, like I have, you know, certain people that don't like watching shows that I know, and they don't understand. I like movies, but I don't like shows. Why do people watch shows? Well, because they get attached to the characters. They want to see what happens to the characters of the show. The premise of the show sometimes doesn't matter that much. They just want to watch their characters do whatever they're doing, or struggle, or laugh, or whatever's going on. And it's sometimes with a film, you know, sometimes it's harder to do that in such a short time span, but you did it. And the other thing too, I noticed as well, the kind of format of it, how it kind of, you know, you have these, like, I'm going to say 5 main characters technically, or so to speak.
Give or take, yeah.
They're kind of like, yeah, give or take 5 main characters. So and they break off, and you go in between. You're starting to follow each other's stories. So you cut back and forth between the 2 stories, or the 3 stories, or the 4 stories, and you see, and then some of them come back together and whatever. Some of them experience things as like a group of 3, and that kind of thing I found was really forward moving with the film too. You know, you want to see what happens, and then by the time you go, oh, what's up with Ozzy? You know what I mean? Like then it cuts to what's going on with Ozzy and the crazy stuff that's going down. So it's a very engaging movie, but the comedy comes through really well, and the gore was really well done. That's another thing with these kinds of movies is obviously the special effects. You know, you guys, that was done really well in terms of the blood and the gore part of it, and the quote unquote zombies were, they're
mutant ravers.
mutant ravers. Yeah, the mutant ravers. What they turn into is great, and it's just such a fun movie. Like you're supposed to come out of it like, wow, that was like a really fun movie, and that's exactly what it accomplishes. So I wanted to ask, is this filmed? So I want to actually talk about Ironbox for a minute too, because this is part of your part. You're a big part. It's you, Luke, and someone else, right? That owns Ironbox.
Well, basically, Ironbox Films. I started Ironbox Films in 2007, right after I graduated from film school. And this naive idea that if I just make a short film, I can just make a feature right after that, which it's just not the reality of things.
Right.
But like I was like, yeah, I can do Ironbox Films. That'll work, because Ironbox Music was my record label that I ran before that. And I just transferred everything. Oh, Ironbox Music, Ironbox Films. Bosh.
There we go. Okay.
And that was I'm based in London, so basically I graduated the London Film School. Said I'm gonna set up shop, and I'm just gonna start doing this thing. And bit by bit, my partner Nathan joined me. Luke and I we went together to film school, so that's where we met. Right. And then I had a business partner for a while in Raymond Behrens, who basically was the producer for this film. We've parted ways since then. We don't work together anymore. Right. But that was a fallout from the pandemic. But still, no, we made the movie together back in 2018. And the big thing was that we were this trio plus a couple others, and had like made corporate promos and commercials and things like that for our bread and butter, and tried to get some movies off the ground.
Wow.
And that's Ironbox Films. So that's basically what's been going. And Ironbox Films is still going, but we've kind of stopped the whole corporate commercials thing. We don't really do that.
So you're focusing just on films now more.
Well, I've got a whole new thing now with my filmmaking community with Centerframe, which I'll plug if you let me.
Go for it, please.
Well, basically, Centerframe is a community of filmmakers, a global community where we kind of network and collaborate on projects. We sort of exchange ideas, give each other feedback, and then we basically fund these films through our membership fees. So basically, as opposed to a crowdfunding model where you kind of beg and steal for like 3 months straight to mostly your parents and friends anyway. Right. And then maybe you find some online people. We're like, yeah, but that doesn't suit most filmmakers, and we felt that this would be an alternate way to kind of get good ideas out. So the idea is we have a club, this global community. Members join, and through sort of the membership fees, basically we provide the platform where people can collaborate, and then members submit their projects, and then vote on which projects get funded. So it's not like us as an organization say what it is. Say what the projects get funded. The community decides what the projects are, and we do, and that's sort of in a quarterly cycle, so every 3 months.
That's a cool thing.
Yeah, and that's my bread and butter now. Actually, voting is right now, so people can join and vote on the projects that have been submitted, and start the whole thing again in 3 months.
And that's centerframe.com. That's what that is.
Centerframe.com. If you're watching the video, there's the link down here. You can.
I see it behind you. Yeah, I was actually. Exactly. I was gonna actually ask what that was because I saw the thing there.
Yeah. Now, Centerframe.com. Have a look if you're interested. We mostly cater to writers, directors, and producers. And the idea is that we collaborate and we develop projects together, and then vote on which ones to fund. And it's mostly short films and feature scripts at the moment. But the more we grow, the more stuff we'll make. So that's the idea.
Well, that's absolutely terrific. Yeah, I mean. I wasn't sure. I didn't know that you guys did the corporate videos and stuff. Obviously, you got to do that kind of thing for the bread and butter. But I checked out Ironbox Films, and I saw that you guys have some award-winning features, and you guys did a lot of really interesting. You have a slew of movies in there, and pieces of work that you guys have done together. And you should be proud of them. I mean, all that stuff. You should, man. I mean, you did, what a lot of people try to do, but it's hard to do. So you did a great job putting that stuff together. And when you come across something like that, you have, you want to, the quality of what you're doing is there. And I think that's part of why it works so well. Like with Ravers, for example, you got the production quality with Ravers was really well done. You never know when you get a fun, campy horror movie, it could go either way.
You're totally right.
Yeah, some people are like, I'm gonna, shoot this with my iPhone, and then that's that, And so I like that you guys, however you got the funding together, whatever you did, to get it done, you did a really good job on the production side of it. And it was just a really fun film. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was also an incredibly fun experience. I mean, it's you never know when you start embarking on these kinds of things, and how it's going to turn out. I mean, obviously, we liked the script. We wouldn't have done it if we didn't think that.
Of course, yeah.
But you never really know, right? And it was also like for me as a director, it was a huge step up from my previous film. I mean, my previous film we had £80,000, which is what $100,000. The step up in scale was so huge for me, and I learned so much from it, and what the benefits and the pitfalls of running this kind of a ship is. And it really, I mean, there's as much as I thought I was ready for this stuff. I definitely learned a lot on the go, where I thought, oh no, I can totally take care of this, and completely misguided thinking that. There's just nothing like making a feature film. It is so much more than you think it is. Even if you think, oh well, it's just a short film, just longer, it's actually a lot more than that.
But that's probably how people get started. They just jump in going, even if it's like, oh, I think I can do this, or they do their research. Like, I think I can handle this. I think I know, I've heard that, I saw some interviews, I think it was Jonah Hill or someone said, directing is just, being able to resolve, it's problem solving. It's constant problem solving. And, and then being able to hold the story together and hold the actors together and make sure everything is confluent in the film. And so there's definitely a lot of work to making films. And we, on Looku, we actually have an original film as well called Slasher Party, which is also it's a fun. You should check it out when you get a chance. It's all about influencers. It's a great film too. It's a horror movie as well. It's campy and funny, and it's kind of a similar vibe as Ravers would be, for example, which is why they're in the same funny. It's just funny humor. Yeah. And on Looku also, we have a bit of a community as well. And what we do is we enable someone like you, the filmmaker, Ironbox, for example, to create a whole almost channel where you can have all your films on our as long as the distribution is done the same way. I'm not going to say it, but as long as distribution is done the same way as Ravers was, we can get those films, and you can do a subscription, and you can do perks, and you can sell merch and all that stuff right from the site, which is on everything, Google Play and Amazon Fire Stick and everything else under the sun, obviously. So we have a little bit of a cool things that differentiate us from your standard platform. But we're really proud to have Ravers on. I'm going to look into some of the other stuff that you guys did and see if it's distributed the same way, and maybe we'll grab some of those.
No, that'd be amazing. That'd be awesome. I mean, it's very interesting, this whole thing. I love the way while the way of the industry at the moment is really frustrating in many ways, because it's so heavily dominated by these big streamers, so pouring a lot of money into it, but then only really pouring a lot of money into a handful of companies. On the other side of it, I love that so many other platforms and communities and everything are popping up saying, no, there's a different way of doing this. There's a better way of doing this.
Right.
And it doesn't all have to be Netflix. It doesn't all have to be Amazon.
No, and that's the thing.
And I think that's I love that the internet now enables that, that you can just, create these kinds of platforms, create these kinds of things that just, cater to a more niche audience, and say, look, this is what we do, and you like what we do, here, come and have a look, and I think it's brilliant. It's exactly what the internet's made for. And
exactly. I agree 100%. I agree 100,000%. And that's the thing is like, being able to be part of a platform that invites all different kinds of films in, and also creators as well, to be able to start, because we kind of combine things. It's a platform like a Netflix or a Tubi or whatever, what have you, where we have all kinds of great films, but we also incorporate, creators that are doing podcasts or that are doing reviews or that are doing their own thing to create a channel where they could do a subscription and be right up next to Ravers, next to great films. And that's kind of the differentiator between us and other platforms. But at any rate, I thoroughly enjoyed Ravers. You guys did an impeccable job in terms of the humor and the horror combination. The special effects were 100% solid, dude. Every character, actor. No, seriously, the actors were great. Because with a film like Ravers, anything could, I hate to say it, but you as like a musician, like it's like, imagine like, you hear, like Luke, for example, ask Luke, you yourself, you hear a great band and it's like, all of a sudden the singer ruins it. Oh man, he's not singing in key, but the guitar riffs are just ridiculous. The same thing goes for film. It's like you can have this great premise, you could have these great actors, you could have this great story, but the special effects could just be terrible. And it just destroys everything. Everything goes downhill. So one thing could really throw the whole, center of it off. And that's something that, it's great that, when you catch a film like Ravers, everything is so solid and so good. And you want to see what happens at the end, to her, what I mean?
You're singing so many praises. Like, I feel it's so funny because as a director, you feel so differently about your movie, because when I watch my movie, all I see is its flaws,
of course. You'll always be your own worst critic,
and so of course it's always really encouraging when I hear somebody just sort of gushing over it. I was like, oh, that never happens. I'll only ever hear my own criticism.
It's hard to step outside that box as a director, dude. As a filmmaker, you'll always view it the same way no matter what I say. But I don't think it's a necessarily bad thing to always be kind of catching the flaws of things, because if you do another film the next time around, you'll think about whatever you would look at as a flaw and be like, oh, I'm going to do this differently this time. And that's how you learn and grow as, what I mean, in your profession.
Absolutely. But, I mean, as the one of the worst things you can do is believe your own bullshit. So if you start believing that you're brilliant, you made something terrible.
Yeah, there you go.
It's as simple as that.
That's like a Woody Allen thing right there. That's something Woody Allen would say for sure. He hates his films. He's like, my films are terrible. And I think that's the thing directors do. They pick apart their stuff. And I'm a musician as well, so I get it. You make a song and it's like you're picking it apart. I could have done that. If you don't just finish it and put it out in the world, it may never happen. It will never happen. What I mean? And the thing with films too, like I've worked on some films, not as a direct way as that, but I've written some music for films, and I've gotten scenes where it's like, oh, put this song in the film, and girl goes in the bathroom, you muffle the song, and she comes out, and you on that simple stuff. Yeah. But I've gotten scenes, before they were released to do temps and stuff into them, and to be able to, I think that as crazy as this sounds, I would imagine, because I'm not a filmmaker, I would imagine that the post part of it is probably like terrifying,
I mean, with Ravers, post was difficult for two reasons. One, we ended up shooting later than we wanted to. So we wanted to film at the end of 2017 and ended up having to postpone because we were supposed to film in Ireland. That's where we were scheduled to film. And that's where we had our financing and stuff like that. And then that whole setup collapsed. But we still wanted to film and had said, okay, fine, let's push it to spring. Let's make it let's film in Wales instead. I mean, I wanted to film in Chicago, but then there was not a single line item that would have allowed me to film in Chicago.
Right? Yeah.
like nobody was like, dude, we're not paying for that. It's not never gonna happen.
No, yeah, forget it.
So yeah, no filming in Chicago. I had to make do with Wales. But since most of it's inside a warehouse, it didn't really matter. And so we basically filmed in spring, but that meant we wanted to get the film out for Fright Fest here in the UK. So yeah, exactly. So we wanted to premiere it there, but that suddenly cut 3 months out of our post-production schedule.
Yeah.
Because we needed time to film it, time to prep, we needed time to film, and then of course cut and blah blah blah. And suddenly we had no time to edit. We had no time. It was incredible. Like, it was such a rushed post-production period. And many of the flaws that I see in the movie are because we didn't really have the time to edit it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm like, oh man, if we could just go back in and fix the edit here.
Just let it go, man. Let it go.
I got it. I can't not. But it's
done. And
5 years on, I still look at it and have exactly the same things. Oh man, if it could only, it's just.
It's your movie. You should probably stop watching it.
Oh yeah, I've seen it so many times. I mean, but the thing is that it's just it was a very, very quick turnaround for the film, and I'm amazed we pulled it off. And certainly the hardest part, since you mentioned the music, was trying to balance the constantly playing techno in the film and trying to mix the tracks together and then build an arc with the techno, and make sure that works.
Did you do that? Who did that? Who did the score?
I mean the tracks are real tracks. So everything that the DJ plays are real techno tracks. Some of them are absolute classics. So they like anybody who was into techno would recognize. Oh my God, that's this one. Oh my God, that's that one. Right. And some of them are more contemporary. Some of them are newer. I'm huge on drum and bass. So I ended up picking. I picked all the tracks basically, with the exception of 2, which the editor picked. And
you're talking about Toto?
No, yeah, Toto was the editor's idea. And the funny thing was that idea came not because of the movie, of the story, because that wasn't written in the movie. That joke came because for the end of the shoot party, for a rap party, the editor put together this little montage and ended up putting Toto into the montage when the guy pushes play, and we're like, that's genius. That's so funny, And we said, dude, we have to try and do this. And then of course the question comes, how can we afford Toto? I mean, can we afford this song? It's like, well, there's a little way to get around this by not playing by not using the original recording. You avoid the technical rights, so you have to cover it. But if you cover it well enough, you pay a much smaller fee for having a cover. And so So my composer ended up, perfectly replicating Toto.
He did a great job.
And unless you know the recording really, really well, you're going to be hard pressed to hear the difference. And what was really, really cool is that the composer, Ty Unwin is his name. He basically, to make it sound similar, he found a mix emulator that basically emulates different mixing desks from different regions, like from different studios. And he got an emulator that simulates the way the mixing desk worked for that recording, So he found out which desk they recorded that song on. That's how far he went. Completely ridiculous. I was like, dude, this is like a bit song in a silly little horror movie. He's like, if you ask me to do this, I'm gonna do this. Like, don't ask me to do something and do it half-assed. You know what I mean? I'm like,
perfectly, and he did it perfectly.
No, it was great. It was a joke that went way overboard. But
what's funny is that I used to write songs for films. And part of what I used to do was write sound-alike songs for songs they couldn't afford the originals for. Not covers, but songs that were similar enough to not get sued. Mm-hmm. I've even had musicologists come in and compare and be like, oh, you got to change that chord, or that guitar solo's got to, that kind of thing. And I couldn't even tell that wasn't the real. I mean, there's stuff going on.
I mean, the thing is, this is not a sound-alike, so we are covering it.
No, but it's a perfect one. It was perfectly done.
It's really good.
That joke was great. That was a great comedic part of the film. I laughed during it. and you know, I love all those little things in the film, but yeah, the soundtrack was really good too. The way that you did balance the, you know, and I could tell you love drum. There's some drum and bass with the two the stoner couple who are smoking weed and they're laughing at his eyeball starts. That I love the eyeball twitching.
I have such a great story about that. Basically, there's a whole scene that we ended up cutting out because we couldn't afford it, which was so funny and so brutal, and we just couldn't do it because it just wasn't in the budget, and it was the hardest thing for us to cut out because basically, you know, the premise is that, you know, the ravers basically start reacting excessively based on the kind of drugs they take. So if you're high on coke, you get very aggressive. If you're high on cat, you get super sleepy, you know, you don't feel anything, blah 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 blah. So obviously stoners get very hungry, you know. And so we had this whole scene where the two stoners that are in this little room find the guy that basically is passed out on the floor from ketamine, drag him up to the room and start disassembling him while the guy's alive, you know. So he's like laying there, eyes bulging out like this, and they start taking out his organs, you know, digging in and start getting so like, oh, look, there's the spleen, you know, and you know, and they get, it's like, oh, I'm so hungry, you know, and just start eating it, you know.
I would have loved to have seen that scene.
It was so funny in the script, and Luke was like, "Please don't cut this. Please don't cut this." And
so you filmed it. You filmed the
whole thing. No. We had to cut it from the script because we couldn't because it was not a plot point in the movie. So
right. I get it. There's only so much space that you have to work with. I get that. Yeah.
It was like we couldn't do it.
I would have loved to have seen that. Just to tell you,
I wanted
to have seen that. I think that would have flowed right along with the premise of the film.
I wanted to watch that scene so badly. Like when we were writing it, we were laughing constantly, right?
Yeah, but I mean that's something that I also picked up on as well. Just the fact that, you know, the drug, and that's actually kind of when I picked up on it. I mean, there's the scene with Ozzy where you know, he's like, that guy, you know, that guy's probably on ketamine. He's passed out on the ground. That's the dude that I think people trample over throughout the movie. And then you see that, you know. And then he bumps into the dude with the cigarette, and he just puts it back, and he just doesn't care anymore. Yeah. But yeah, no. When you go up to I loved those characters, the dude and the chick that were the stoners, how they are mutated. They're getting more and more mutated, but they're laughing about it and having a good time. They're not aggressive. They're totally chill, and that's kind of really the point in the film where I was like, all right, so because they're stoners, that's why they're just chill. They don't really care. You know, he's smoking the bong and he's like, just give him what he wants, man. You know, he's laughing. And I was like, all right, so they're all mutants out. But, and I love, all right, I guess I can't give that away. I couldn't. Because, you know, Becky, you know, what happens to her towards the end, what she does to save the day, so to speak, in the end, you know, what she sees is awesome through her eyes during that. You know, and so like that's cool too, because you kind of when you see stuff like that, a film like that, no matter what, where it's like zombies or people that are like, you know, they have something, whatever's going on with them, you want to see through their eyes what it's like, you know. So to give that a little piece of that was really cool too. So there was you know what, man, there was a lot of cool stuff in it. And that's what I mean by Jen, it's Jen, right? The cop is Jen.
Yeah.
What happens to her between her and Kamal and Vince, and what happens there, and what she does when that happens, how she reacts. You go, yeah. And then, you know, what happens, you know, to Georgia at the end, to Becky at the end. What I think I liked a lot about it was that, you know, it was well done, but it also is satiating in a way. It's like, all right, cool. Like you're doing things that people are kind of watching. I would, you know, you want to see that happen. And then you kind of give that, and it's just like, all right, good. Thank you. Yeah. So so all that stuff was really cool. Thank you again for joining me, man. I mean,
no problem. It was a great
cool. Yeah, no, this was so cool of you, dude. And is there anything else you want to, is there anything coming up or anything you want to,
Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple of things. So filmmaking wise, I have one of the other films I produced. So aside from directing, I do produce.
Right.
And I produced a film from Cyprus with a really really fantastic writer director. His name is Stavros Pambalis, and I produced his first film called The Siege in Liberty Street, which is a really really fantastic sort of indie thriller. Cyprus, if you don't know anything about it, is basically a country that's split in half between the northern Turkish half and the southern Greek half. And it's basically been in this state with a UN buffer zone in between since the 70s.
Wow.
And so that's kind of the Stavros's films kind of are defined very much by that cultural setup. And so his first film is set on the buffer zone there. And his second film, called The First Cypriot Astronaut, is a really charming, heartwarming comedy drama about a Cypriot physics professor who finds out he has a brain tumor and decides to fulfill his childhood dream to become an astronaut, except that building a rocket in a UN buffer zone does not go down very well.
Right.
And so of course he has to do this in very very much in secret, but he ends up roping in his disgruntled army major brother-in-law and a former Soviet rocket scientist who's there on a museum exhibit to basically help him build this thing.
Wow.
And it's
persuasive.
It's a really really charming, heartwarming film. It's really really genuinely great. So I'm producing that. We're in financing mode on that, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll have all the financing together for it. I am looking for private equity investments. Anybody's listening? We are looking for private financing. But we so that's a film I'm producing now, and that'll hopefully be shot start of next year. And then Luke is working on a semi-sequel to Ravers, but it's not. Yeah, but it's not with Ravers. It's with the same character, sort of a spin-off sequel thing. But I'm not gonna say what it is because
okay. I was gonna ask,
but it's genuinely great. So I hope it comes off the ground in the reasonable future. And so he is writing it's not an actual sequel, but it is with similar characters and that kind of thing. It's what do you call it? A spin-off in a way, if you want, you can call it a spin-off.
One of the characters, at least.
More than one. But in an entirely different world. So,
okay, got it. So it's not really a spin-off. It's kind of just
exactly. It's in the same universe. That's what I'm saying.
Right. It's in the same universe. Right. Got it.
The same universe, but it's and some similar characters, but they are not the main characters in it. So they are part of this thing, but it's a different story. I have a neo-western that I'm trying to get off the ground. It's called Homestead. And it's basically I'm working with a producer in Los Angeles to try and get a cast together. And
you like westerns?
Oh, I put it this way: with westerns, I'm very much a mixed bag because I love neo-westerns. I'm not a big fan of classic westerns, so not that big on sort of the John Ford classics or anything like that. So basically, anything Taylor Sheridan has gotten off the ground has been pretty bloody brilliant. And so that's it's pretty much set in that vein, this kind of thing, but it's a compact neo-western set on a ranch, and it doesn't really sort of branch out before that, but it's a siege movie where a family of ranchers basically has to face off against the US Border Patrol, and so yeah, that's basically my next directorial movie that I want to try and go through.
All right, so there's stuff coming up. On a side note, I have to just bring this up just because you said Western. There's a movie that you should really watch. Oh. It's an old school one, but I think you'll like it. Okay. You might know about it. It's called The Great Silence.
Oh, I have heard of this film.
If you haven't watched it, watch the film, because as a filmmaker, the end of the movie will drop your jaw straight up. And this is an old Western. Okay.
All right. Okay.
No, it's it's got to accept it. No, trust me. And then you can hit me up when you do and let me know what you thought, because I watched this. I'm not the biggest, I've seen like Fistful of Dollars and I like some of the old school spaghetti Western stuff. But this movie threw me off, and it was really so. If especially someone who's doing neo-western, check this movie. It's The Great Silence. One of the best underrated westerns of all time. No one knows about it. It's a great film.
Okay, The Great Silence. And is it on LookWho.tv?
No, it's not on LookWho yet. But
if you're gonna challenge,
I actually watched it on Amazon because you can rent it on Amazon. I should actually look to see. I think one of the next things I want to do actually is get some westerns on the LookWho platform. But we do have a lot of crazy stuff, including Ravers. So,
right.
Again, Bernhard, thank you so much for joining us, man. For joining me, I really appreciate it. And when I will let you know when this podcast airs. And I appreciate you taking your time.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me. I much appreciate it. It's always fun. Ravers, I haven't spoken about Ravers in a little bit, so it's really great to have a nice chat about it. And who knows, maybe I'll watch it again and appreciate it a bit more for what it is.
It's a great film, and anyone in the horror community, it's like the horror community is the kind of community that's constantly looking for more horror. There's a never ending. They're like the mutants in the movie. They're like more. That's how the horror. They're so diehard. It's crazy. And we love to be like elitists about it. Like, have you seen Ravers? No. Okay, well, it's cool. It's check this out. So
I've seen it. You haven't?
Yeah, exactly. That's what horror people are. Oh, you haven't seen that? You're not a horror fan. So like, Ravers is like one of those movies where it's like, I feel like it hasn't, peaked with its audience yet, and hopefully I want LookWho to help get it there because it struck really well for me, and I'm a big horror guy, so I know that the horror community will love it. What's up, everyone? This is Joe Conte. Welcome to another episode of Playing Now Today.